going to do a couple things with this particular session. I'm going to talk to you from a widow's perspective so that you could come alongside someone who might have experienced a big loss. But I'm also going to talk to you because I know there's at least one other widow in the room. By a show of hands, is there, if you're a widow or have experienced a significant loss in the last, lifetime? Yeah. Yeah, because there are some things that are universal about grieving that we can talk about today. A little bit about me just for background, and that is that I was widowed twice in 4 years. And that's not the only loss that we had. My father-in-law passed after he was with us for, a year and a half in the house, which was its own set of grief, caring for a parent. And then 3 weeks later, my husband died, and 3 months after that, my mama died. So I've had some seasons, and it sort of feels like they come in seasons like that. But I'm 20 years down the road from that particular time. And what I'd like to talk about today is just what that felt like and how other people supported me and how some people just kind of banged into me. We all go through some season of grief. We just do. You lose a job, you bury a pet, you break up with your boyfriend, you get fired from your job, your dreams go down in flames, your book doesn't get published. There is a bunch of ways that we go through loss, and we're going to speak today about that giant umbrella of loss. And grief is what the outcome is. When you experience a loss, you are going to experience grief. Even subtle loss can trigger some big grief. For example, if you suddenly become an empty nester, or you move away from home for the first time, or you take a different job and it pulls you away from friends and family that have been security for you for a long time, you may experience loss. Marrying off a child, having a child go off to college, selling your family home. These are all things that you may experience grief, and you may not even identify it. But if you are feeling like you're walking through a fog, or that your joints are achy, or that you have no energy, those are all symptoms of grief. In my book, The Widow Wore Pink, I say grieving is as individual as your mama's chili. There is no one way to grieve. It will be your way, and it takes as long as it takes. A lot of it depends on your personality, your support system, and your coping style, and of course the nature of your loss. But this is what I tell women, and this is what I'll tell you, Robyn, that great love is worthy of great sorrow. Great love is worthy of great sorrow. And when you love somebody or something a great deal, it's going to take just a little while to process that. And I would like to just tell you that he's worthy, she's worthy, your job is worthy, your pet is worthy of that loss. That achy feeling is almost how you show honor to the person or the thing that you lost. If you have experienced a significant loss, you're going to experience significant sorrow. They just go hand in hand. In 1964, the psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross introduced what has become known as the 5 stages of grief. There are 5 stages of grief. Now, when you go through grief, you'll know that it feels like the 5 stages of grief is a cement truck that backed over you. But loosely, you can get these stages of grief, and they are the denial. No, 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 no. This is not what's happening. And then I know that happened to me after my husband died. The contractor that we were working with to build a house said, "He can't be gone. I like him too much." I mean, people just say they're just immediate. He didn't have the intimate relationship that I did with my husband, but even people peripherally will be affected by the loss, and their first response is almost always no. No, because you don't like it. You don't want it. And you just say no. That's what we do when we don't want it and we don't like it, isn't it? We just say no. So denial is almost universally the first phase. Then comes anger, and that usually manifests itself in, why is this happening? And it's my experience also that when somebody says why, they really don't care why. I don't give a rip why. What I want is my thing back. I want my job back. I want my husband back. I want my pet back. I want my dream restored. When we say why, it is anger, and it's, but it really comes out more of, I don't like it. I want it back. Then the bargaining comes. Bargaining is, I'll do anything if. I'll do anything if. And I don't know how that came up for you, but after about 6 months, I felt like the bottom had dropped out from under me. For the first little while, like right when it happens, there is this supernatural strength that comes on you. And you're nice to people, and you plan the funeral party, and you answer the phone, and you comfort everyone who wants to know why this thing happened to you. And then the casseroles come and the cards come. But then it ebbs off because there's a new crisis. And there's a new thing, and people don't know what to say to you anymore. In the moment, we know, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. Oh, I wish I could change that for you. Oh, my goodness, that has to be so hard. In the very moment, we know what to say, but as time goes on, we become an object of discomfort. We don't want to, typically, a widow will lose 75% of her support within the first year. A couple things happen. One is that you look at me and you go, I don't know what to say to her, so I'm just not going to say anything to her. The other thing that happens is, why isn't she better? I mean, people just think, why aren't you better yet?
Just get over it.
Just get over it, for heaven's sakes. He's dead. He's not coming back. It's been 6 months. Are you going to be like this forever? I mean, people don't know what to do with you. You're suddenly the 3rd wheel or the 5th wheel or the 17th wheel, and you just don't fit neatly into dinner parties. People who used to do things with you as a couple, what do they do with you? You can't play euchre with 3. You can't go on a dinner date with 3. That's just awkward. We feel uncomfortable, and so do they. And what happens is that the support system bottoms out. There are some things that we'll talk about shortly about how to avoid those things and what you can do to help. But that's one of the stages. After the denial, anger, bargaining, comes depression. My experience is that depression comes in various stages and intensity, but almost always about 4 to 6 months after the loss. After about 4 to 6 months, you look in the mirror and you go, this is it. This is the rest of my life. And it just feels so hopeless. It just feels like forever. And you don't know how it's ever going to change. This just seems like it's just so, your bones are achy, your joints are achy, your appetite's gone, your hair's falling out. I mean, all these are very real symptoms of grief. And you just kind of get into, and the support, the community support has ebbed away by that time, and you're just kind of, what's the point? In some cases, the more responsibility you have when you experience a loss, the better. If you have little kids that you have to get up and get to school and feed and do laundry for, It's almost like an incentive program. But if you're an empty nester or a single woman, or the loss puts you in isolation, it's almost beyond what you can bear on your own. The depression is so dark. And after a little bit, the last of the big five is acceptance. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And that's not usually, oh, well, I'm so glad that happened. It's not like that. It's reconciling your differences. It's coming to terms with your new normal. It's figuring out how to make your life work even when it hasn't changed since the day of the loss. Not everyone goes through all of these stages, and hardly anybody I know goes through them in a nice, neat, conformed packaging. They come in different pieces and they come at different times, and you just never know when one's going to hit you. I think that's the biggest problem that I had, was that you just never knew what the trigger was going to be today. If it was a smell or a song or a view, a kid walks by and it looks like your dad, he looks like his dad, or you just never know what's going to be the trigger, and it's not like you can prepare for it. But you have to come to the point where you have a protocol. I'm all about systems, and my protocol is very simple: a good snot cry and a nap. Because there's just not much else you can do with it. The American Hospice Foundation says that grief is not like a neat, tidy little step ladder that you climb on and get over. It's more like riding a roller coaster. Just get in, buckle up, and hang on, because it is going to toss you around. And that's what it feels like, doesn't it? When you go through any kind of loss, doesn't it kind of feel like you got put in a shaker jar and you just got bunched up? Eventually, the difficult periods become less intense and further apart. But even years later, you just never know what's going to make a trigger. We have two boys, 27 and 24. The 24-year-old is married. He got married last August. He's a firefighter. He lives in South Carolina. Please don't tell me it's a great place to visit, because I'm still getting over the idea that he doesn't live in my state. Love South Carolina, but it's got my kid. Anyway, last August, we are getting ready for the wedding, and Eli, the groom, walks out in front of me, and I saw his dad. His dad had been dead 17, 18 years. But here he came, and he was in front of me, and all I could see was his back and his backside and his hair and his gait and that black tuxedo, and I was right there. I mean, I was right there. That's him. That's my dead husband walking down the aisle. And girls, I was a mess for the rest of the day. It hit me like a tidal wave, and I enjoyed the day. I'm sure I was rude to people. I'm sure that I was oblivious because I was just so foggy. It was not like anything that I can explain. When you're the mother of the groom, you're supposed to make nice with everybody, and are you having a good time, and can I get you some punch, and wasn't dinner lovely, would you like some cake? Oh, I see that you made it from. I couldn't do any of that. I sat at a table and I did everything but curl up in the fetal position and suck my thumb, because my dead husband had made an appearance, and I just wanted my life back. And I kept thinking, What would it have been like if he'd lived? And isn't Eli a good boy? And I wish his dad could have been here to see that. I mean, just a million things ran through my mind. Things that I didn't expect that day. You just never know what's going to hit you. A big issue with dealing with grief, whether it's your own or watching someone else, is the judgment that we assign to it. When my father-in-law died, after 45 years of marriage to his sweet wife, he buried her, and within months, he was running the roads, had traded in his big Cadillac for a red sports car, and he was cruising for chicks. And I thought, what is the matter with you? I judged him. I thought, well, he must not have loved that woman very much. He sure got over that in a hurry. And what is he thinking chasing after these young girls? And what's he thinking driving that crazy little car? And I was pretty sanctimonious in my assessment of his situation because I didn't have any experience. All I had was Hollywood to draw on. So when the thing happens to you, it's very likely that people are going to say things that hurt your feelings, that seem insensitive, if not rude. I buried Andy, the father-in-law, and then 3 weeks later, my husband, his son died. And almost immediately, I started feeling the repercussions. You know, it says, judge not, for you will be judged. And I got all of that. People would come up to me in the ladies' room and say, are you losing weight to attract a new husband? Oh, wow. Or they would say, oh, I noticed you're working on your house. I drive by your house all the time. Do you think your husband would approve of the improvements that you're making on his house? They didn't know any better. But because I had just gone through this with my father-in-law, because I had taken care of him for about a year after his wife died, and I had made all these same assignments to him, I knew that the only option that I had was to be gracious to these people, even though they were so rude. And it felt heartless to me. And when I buried the second husband in 4 years, people told me, you shouldn't get married again. I think you're cursed.
Oh my.
I had a lady at one of the workout places that I go to ask me on the QT, did you really bury 2 husbands in 4 years? And I said, yeah, I did. And she said, there was another lady in here and she said that you killed him, got away with it.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
People have to say things that help them understand why it happened. See, I couldn't have 2 husbands die of natural causes because if it could happen to me, it could happen to her. And if she could figure out a way to figure out why it happened to me, then she could avoid it happening to her. Does that make sense? In the midst of your grief, you are called to be gracious. If you are supporting someone who's going through a loss, the best thing you could say is, I'm sorry, I just don't know what to say. I'm sorry, I just don't know what to say. I would even go so far as to say, if I say anything that hurts your feelings, know that I do not mean it. I am not intending to hurt you. It's very likely that I might say something that I don't understand and cause you pain, and I don't mean to do that. If you are the one who is grieving, I'm asking you to be Jesus with skin on. Because when you stand in front of people and say, I serve an awesome God, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, it's all good when everything's happy. But when you have a disaster, your house burns down, your car gets wrecked, your kid gets sick, your husband dies, people put you under a microscope. And I'm asking that you would be as gracious as you possibly can to a world that does not understand, that we are not alone, that we have a God who loves us, that we have a God who forgives us, that we have a God who speaks to us through the Holy Spirit and through his people, and that has a plan for us that we don't understand, but we can trust this God. They don't know him. And you will never, ever be closer to the Lord than you are in the midst of a trial, because there is no place else to go. Honestly, if it weren't for the catastrophe, it's a glorious thing. I've never felt the presence of the Lord like I have in grief. I have never felt the presence of the Lord like I do when I'm in the midst of a trial, when there is no place else to go. It's a heavenly thing that I don't ever want again. You get that? So, let's see. It's common, for people who don't know what to say, some things that you can say, that universally, again, everybody is a little different, and what hurts your feelings might be just exactly what you need to hear. But things like, I heard that whatever happened. I heard that your daughter got diagnosed. I heard that your house burned down. I heard that your husband died. I heard that. Just acknowledging it so that the elephant in the room is out, so she doesn't know. Does she know? Does she not know? Do I have to say it? Do I have to tell her again? Just to say, I heard that. I'm so sorry. If there's anything I can do, let me know. Be genuine with your communication. Again, I just don't know what to say, but I want you to know that I care. Be willing to sit in silence. The big thing that I encountered, maybe you did too, is that people wanted me to feel better. They really wanted me to feel better. And when I couldn't feel better after a couple months, it became uncomfortable for them. So now they want me to feel better so they feel better, right? So that they're not awkward, so that this is gone. And you just have to make this allowance. If you're the one doing the supporting of a person who's grieving, sometimes the best thing that you can do is just be with them. Just sit. If they cry, don't try to make them stop. Just hand them a tissue. And another tissue, and another tissue. Just let them cry and try, and don't tell them. You can't say things like, this is going to be okay, because you don't know if it's going to be okay. And you just sit in silence with them is very, very comforting. Just knowing that there's a sanctuary someplace on the planet that is a safe place for you to just let your feelings go. I had 4 girlfriends that we had been friends before the deaths started coming, and they were so great. They were just so great for me. I could call them in the middle of the night. 2 in the morning, and I could call any one of them and say, not going to make it. Just not going to make it tonight. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to make it. And they would stop what they're doing. They would get out of their beds. They would get in their cars, and they would come to my house in their pajamas. And they would just sit with me. And it was great to know that I didn't have to go through it alone. Now, if you're the one who's grieving, you got to make that call. They don't know how painful you are, how pained you are in the middle of the night. You've got to make the call. How many feel comfortable calling somebody in the middle of the night? Right, 1, 2. It's an awkward thing, isn't it? So you have to have this prearranged thing. Can I put you on my speed dial? Do I have permission? Like when you say, if there's anything I need, do you mean that? Can I actually call you if I'm under stress? Because if you have permission to call them, you might actually pick up the phone and make that phone call happen. Another really nice thing that you can do for someone who's gone through a loss is to let them talk about it, even encourage them. Like, just sit and, can you tell me about your husband? What was the best thing about your baby? What did you love about your house that burned down? Tell me, because it helps the person who's lost something process the loss. If I get permission to speak about it, then that's really therapeutic for me. So don't be afraid. It's okay with her to talk about her dead husband. It's okay. I would love to bend your ear about what a great guy I married and what a great dad he was and what a great provider he was. But if you don't ask, I think, oh, you're done hearing about it, or you're done with me. You're just ready for me to be better. But if you initiate the conversation, it's a gift. It's really a gift. To provide ongoing support, grieving continues a lot longer than the cards and the flowers. A lot longer. What I would do, what I'm suggesting that you do, is mark your calendar. If you go to the funeral on January 6th, mark your calendar for March 6th, and then, June 6th, and then, November 6th, and definitely next January 6th. And just reach out with a card or a flower or a phone call and say, I'm just thinking about you. I'm just thinking about you today. You don't necessarily have to assume it's a hard day because it's a 3-month anniversary or the 6-month anniversary or the 12-month anniversary. But it feels good to know that you're remembered. Mark on your calendar just some way to make a connection for them. We can't base health and welfare on outward appearances. Like, I look like I got it all together today because I'm trying to put my best foot forward, right? But I might still really be sad. So don't judge how healthy I am by the way I look. Or like Robyn lost her husband in November, just this last November. And she looks all together today. I mean, look, she's got her hair done and her shirt matches and her shoelaces match her blouse and everything. I mean, who'd have thought? Who would have thought that she's a fresh widow? We can't judge by outward appearances. Just because she looks like she's got it together and she's smiling, it doesn't mean she's done. And that's another thing. Widows smile. Widows laugh. It doesn't mean that we don't miss them or we're not sad. It just means we're having a moment that we would like to enjoy. But it's easy to judge, oh, she must be over it, or oh, she must not have loved him much, or oh, she's done with him, or that thing. Be careful not to judge on outward appearances. Know that the pain will subside, but it may never go away. Great love is worthy of great sorrow, and that sorrow takes a while. Some of the things that you can do to help a widow or someone who's lost is to involve them in things. And I'm going to give you a handout that I just love from 10 Ways to Stand by a Widow. Yeah, you could hand those out. And I'll just go, just hit the high spots on these. For example, just offer to assist her. I can remember when my husband died, I knew that there was something under the hood that made the car go, but I wasn't sure what to do with that. Somebody had to explain, you've got to rotate the tires. And I'm thinking they go rotating every time I drive. I didn't know. I mean, I knew how to pump my own gas, but that was it. I didn't know you had to rotate tires and check oil. I didn't know you have to change oil. Just little things about house maintenance, and the furnace has a thing on it that needs to be checked, and so little things like that would make a really, really nice thing. Instead of offering to, thanks, sweetie. Yeah. Instead of sending her meals, because you're really not hungry, and when you're living alone, it's kind of, I don't know, I just had no appetite at all. I lost like 25 pounds in 2 months. I was darling, but I was single. That's what we call a lousy trade-off. But just inviting her over for dinner. Just inviting them out to, if you're single and she's single, maybe just going out, because food tastes better when you're with people that you like. Food tastes better if you didn't have to make it. Food tastes, doesn't it? I mean, really. Food always tastes better if you didn't have to, if you're with friends. So inviting her into your house just to have some time with her. Money is a big deal. 80% of the widows who live in poverty in the United States right now were not poor before they were widowed. 80%. And that's because things cost more and husbands didn't prepare well, or you didn't prepare well together. For example, when I'm married, my husband can unplug the toilet and stop a leaky faucet and change a tire. I paid $279 for a new car battery when I was a widow, because I turned the thing and it went click, click, and I didn't know what to do. So I called a tow truck who towed it to a dealership, who very graciously put a $269 battery in my car. Well, between the tow truck and the service call and the labor, it was a $269 battery.
Then it turned out to be the starter, not the battery.
Right. No, it was all good. But things get more expensive. If you have some little thing go wrong, it's an electrician or a plumber, or it's not just a go out there and fix that thing. It's not a honey-do list, and things get really expensive. Even if you have life insurance, it takes almost 3 months to get the first check. So if you have the resources to throw a little cash even that direction, it can be very helpful. Offer to celebrate high state occasions with her. Her birthday, her anniversary, Halloween, Valentine's Day. These things that you take for granted as a family are suddenly big issues. Like, what do I do with that? First Christmas, I was not going to put up a tree. I mean, no way. I don't decorate anyway. I'm not good at that. And so the tree arranging thing, that was the husband's job. And I was such a lunatic, I took a green magic marker and I drew a tree on the wall and let them color it to decorate the tree. You got to pay to have somebody color that. Oh, now I had to paint the whole, yeah. But you just don't think so clearly, and it was a good solution for me at the time. But if you invite it in, if you can pray with her, that is really, if you can remember to pray for her and let her know, ask her if there's anything particular that she needs, that would be really helpful too. Those are just a couple of ideas. On the good news side, there's always a bright spot. In any grief, there is what I call the lousy trade-off. And that is, you might lose 25 pounds even if you don't have a husband. You don't have to cook dinners for mountain men anymore. Like, one of the things that I hated to make for my husband was Polish kluskis. They're potato dough wads with bacon that boil on your stove for, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, stink up the whole house. They're horrible. And when he died, I thought, well, at least I never have to make Polish kluszkis again. That's a lousy trade-off. Things like I can decorate any way I want. I put a flamingo in every room. It was like, where's Waldo? Only with flamingos. I even put flamingo wallpaper up because I could have the liberty to do that. If you look, God always provides a way for you to find something to hang on to. He will give you moments with him that are unique and special for him, with him. There was it fell right out of my head. There was lousy trade-offs. No, it's gone. It's gone. I know. One thing that you're always quote when something bad happens. Did you get Romans 8:28 until it was coming out of your ears?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Like, Romans 8:28 is God works for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, right? And people don't know what to say, and they want to say something helpful, so they say, well, at least God loves you and something good will come out of this. And you think, there is nothing good coming out of this right now. But as you get a little distance, can you say now that looking back, you could see that there was some good coming out of it? It's not a great thing to say to a newly traumatized person, but it is true that good does come out of it. People will see Christ in you. People will buy life insurance for their spouses. People will put new tires on their car to protect the car accident from happening. Good does come out of every calamity, but it takes a little while to be able to see those things for sure. I am going to close us up just by saying that it's been said you're either coming out of a trial, getting ready for a trial, or in a trial. Loss is something universal to all of us. It comes in varying degrees. What I know to be true is that the only thing that got me through my seasons of trauma was knowing that there was a God in heaven who loved me, and knowing that he would ultimately take good care of me if I trusted him. I don't know how people go through it without the Lord, but between his presence in my life and the people he sent into my life to take care of me, I knew that I was going to make it. If you're a widow or you're in the midst of a loss, ask for help. People don't know what you need, and they really do want to help. And if you're the person who's supporting a person in loss, just keep your eyes open and look for ways to be, we say Jesus was skin on, but to be the body of Christ to them, to look for ways to be a bright spot in a dark place for them.